Hello interwebs and welcome to my review of the latest episode of Disney Plus's Miss Marvel episode 3 Destined, and as you can already tell, this is going to be another episode where you're going to only get my dulcet tones and audio waveform because I'm still recovering from surgery. Hopefully next week I'll be back on camera, but I still look like a pufferfish for now, so apologies that you're not going to see my puffer face. But let's get into the actual review here. I enjoyed this episode. This is another sort of like laying the foundation episode for the show where we get a lot more backstory and things like that, but I did love a lot of the human connections that Kamala was making with her family and her parents here. I think that's the biggest thing that I can say I love about this show is how it manages to take kind of a standard story so far and root it in Kamala's culture as a Pakistani woman, as well as just the fact that we're getting so many of these small moments that really characterize her family as really human, caring people instead of just these caricatures that we usually get in these sort of high school stories. And I think this episode really lays that out wonderfully. Getting into into all of this, I like that we get to see the backstory of Kamala's great-grandmother as we meet these group of what we eventually learn to be Jinn that have come from what I guess is called the Noor Dimension. That's a very comic booky sounding thing. I'm sure that's from the comic books. And they're trying to get back to their home, but they only had, the only way they can do that is with the bangle that Kamala has, but they're not really able to use it and they need her to be able to bring them back. I thought this was a really kind of cool backstory and still also rooted in the mystery that we have that we don't know where Kamala's great-grandmother is. So I thought that this was good exposition and delivered fairly well, and I like this sort of eclectic group of Jinn. It kind of reminds me of the Eternals in a similar way, where these people that lived around forever, they're trying to do certain things, they're sort of a big family together, but as we ultimately learn, they turn out to be evil here instead of good, like, well, I guess the Eternals turn out to be half good. Anyways, it was very similar to that respect. I liked that, and I knew immediately that these were going to be villains of our show, that we weren't going to be able to trust them. We kind of got that vibe that they weren't telling us everything. Like, I immediately got that from this. I also liked during the opening flashback where we got to see a little bit of the backstory that I liked that the British soldiers were the villain, again sort of alluding to Pakistani history and learning more about that sort of story and end of that things that a lot of Americans particularly would not know a lot about. So I thought that that was really, really good. Then we have Kamala going and seeing Bruno and freaking out about the fact that she's a Jinn. I loved that she was freaking out about that fact, that it was like something from her childhood that was freaking out. I was like, oh God, I learned that this is what I am. I thought that was a nice little reveal there. And I dislike Bruno's constant remarks about Kamran and clearly jealousy for Kamran. It's, again, kind of an old trope. It's one of those tropes that this show doesn't really do any particular thing new with. And I kind of find that particularly frustrating. And I'm just tired of jealousy storylines, whether it be between two girls, between two guys, between whoever. It I never really reads well to me, but it was a nice sort of moment between the two of them. We do get a small quick scene with Damage Control coming to investigate the mosque, and I love Nakia pushing back and saying, nope, you do not have the right to come in here. Again, it's sort of evoking like, screw the police, and also the fact that Muslim people have often been vilified in American society, especially by law enforcement. So I liked getting that sort of moment of like comeuppance within here. I thought that that was kind of nice. And then I like the small moment after that where Nakia and Kamala sort of bond over the fact that Nakia has become a board member. Hell yeah, dang, that was awesome. But then Kamala feeling a little bit upset because Damage Control is coming after her and starting to affect things at the mosque. Then we get what I assume, I forget the name of the ceremony, so apologies on that front, but we get basically a kind of a bachelor party, I would assume, like a family bachelor party before the wedding that we have coming up later on. I like sort of seeing that, and I like sort of learning about small little things within that I had no idea that you had to like hide shoes during the ceremony of the husband-to-be. I thought that that was nice, that like playfulness that they have at the story ceremonies. And this kind of goes throughout this whole thing. You know, there's this stigma or sort of perception by America writ large that it's just like the Muslim, religion is very serious, grounded in all these traditions, and very exoticized instead of humanized. And I'm sure, and like, I'm not trying to like say like, oh, a lot of Muslim traditions are not taken seriously, but I like that there's a humor and joy and playfulness within this depiction, as opposed to like taking it so completely seriously, sort of tearing down that stereotype of the exoticness of Muslim religion and making it feel very human. So I enjoyed that. Speaking of playfulness, though, we get a few great little moments for Kamala's parents here. First off, we get Kamala's dad telling her that good is not a thing you are, it is a thing you do. I thought that was very sweet. I also really liked Kamala's dad going to see Bruno at work and getting his, sweet tooth, but then helping him with his sort of gin homework, and that's what leading Bruno to figure out that things will go boom if they don't bring the gin back to their world the correct way. But I just loved Mr. Khan being really playful and joking around with Bruno. He's such a wonderful human being in this show. But we also got something very similar with Kamala and her mom, and I loved tying the things that Kamala's feeling into her mother's immigration story, with America being her mountain, and that there's sort of idea that finding community is what will make Kamala stronger. And that sort of gets reinforced at the wedding scene between Kamala and his father and her brother, and him sort of wondering, it's I only have $7 in my bank account. What am I going to do? And he says, well, you're choosing love. That's the important thing. I thought that was really nice. And again, the playfulness of the marriage ceremony was also really, really great. Another thing that I sort of skipped over here, though, was I also love Bruno telling Kamala about Caltech. I was glad that they didn't drag that out as a point of conflict between the two of them, Bruno not telling her and then Kamala being upset. He just tells her, she's accepting, we move on. I thought that was nice. I always hate those sort of forced conflict things, so I'm glad that we got past that. Then we get to the part of the episode that I really disliked, in that I know that Aisha was going to be the bad guy for the show, but her turn on a dime here was really forced to me. I get that there's probably going to be some sort of timetable that we will learn about in a little bit that sort of is pushing her to get things done now, but you went very quick to oh, I want your help, Kamala, to Kamala betrayed me because of a simple text, which I thought was really too quick of a turn. There was no more manipulation, no more trying to talk to her. Again, I'm sure there's a timetable, but that was just too quick of a heel turn for her to become all villainous and ready to attack and kill Kamala. I thought that was... I did not like that at all. It was way, way, way too forced. But then moving into the dance sequence, we got a nice little dance sequence after the wedding. I was sort of wondering, I know that the family probably paid for a significant portion of this, but it does find it funny that we have this big, huge wedding when he was just complaining about only having $700 in his account. I thought that was funny. He's give him the money for the wedding instead of going all this elaborate, but dang. So I thought that was a little bit funny, but it's a Marvel show. We have to spend money somehow. Also, the band being called Brown Jovi, that was clever. Then we get the Jinn attacking the party. I thought all of this action sequence was really good. I love that we got to see a little bit of Kamala using her powers, but not in a way that felt like she was in control, that she was just barely hanging on and barely getting away. And it was all handled pretty well. I also loved when one of the chefs gets punched, the chefs are like, nope, we're out of here, go and bye. They know they live in the Marvel universe. And then the final confrontation where Aisha grabs the bangle and this train comes through is such a weird thing, and damage control getting everyone. I thought that was an interesting sort of turn. I'm curious what that all means, especially in what we see in the final sequence of the episode. Obviously, Nakia sees Kamala escaping and sees that Kamala has powers, which is going to probably come up more next episode. But then I also really liked the final scene with Kamala's mom saying, look, we want to help you. We're here for you. And I really honestly wish that Kamala had told her that moment, because I feel like she probably would have been a bit annoying about you need to give out the bangle, you need to get rid of the powers, that sort of thing. But I was convinced yes, you should tell her, Kamala. She would be able to help. And again, the whole theme of trusting your family comes up here, so I'm sure that's going to come around towards the end of the season with Kamala possibly telling your family. So that brings us out to the cliffhanger where we learn that Nani saw the train as well, so I'm curious to see where that's going to go, and that leaves us at the end of the episode. I enjoyed this one. Again, a little bit more of a connective tissue one, sort of setting up her villain. I thought the villain turn was a little bit too quick, but the rest of this I thought was pretty solid stuff. Not particularly amazing, but really solid. But I'd love to hear what all of you thought down in the comments below. What did you think of this episode? Don't forget, I also have my Obi-Wan Kenobi review up as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that show. But beyond all of that, thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And I will talk to you all with the Star Trek Strange New Worlds review coming up in just a few days. But beyond all of that, I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper.